Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, June 26th. I'm Stephanie Haney. Welcome back to 3 News Now. Thanks for joining us on the show where we give you the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. Here's a reminder, if you do not yet have the WKYC app, you can download that in the Apple Store if you are an iOS device user, and you can download that in the Google Play Store if you're an Android user. It is free, and then you can get updates about everything that we're covering all day long here at 3 News at WKY Studios in Northeast Ohio. We're going to start today by talking about coronavirus cases. So we track the U.S. cases and the global cases. We talk about those in the 2 p.m. version of 3 News Now every day. Well, the U.S. has hit a new record when it comes to daily COVID-19 cases. 40,000, breaking 40,000 is a new record here. If we look back to the previous high for new reported COVID-19 cases in the U.S., it's 36,400, and that dates back to April 24th. That was before a lot of places started opening back up. Now, experts are talking about why this might be, and part of it is due to some expanded testing, but there is also evidence that the virus is coming back even without taking into account that expanded testing, because we look at some states where the percent positive of the new testing is pretty high. In some places, it's as high as 20%. There are rising deaths and hospitalization in other parts of the country. That's especially in the South and the West. Arizona, Texas, and Florida have particularly been hit hard recently with new cases and deaths and hospitalizations related to COVID-19. Deaths are down compared to April, when they were at 2,200 for the daily high. And some experts do think that it's possible that we might not get back to a high of that level because these new cases are happening in younger people who seem to be dealing with COVID-19 more easily than older people, more easily than people who are in those at-risk populations. We do know, according to experts, that the true number of Americans infected with COVID-19 is about 20 million. That's what the experts are saying. But do keep in mind the things that we know about this virus are about 23 weeks old. So there is a lot that we still don't know. There are a lot of lingering effects that experts have been talking about that we just don't know about. And according to Johns Hopkins University, the virus has claimed close to 500,000 lives globally. So let's take a look at those numbers. These are the numbers that we had as of 2 p.m. yesterday from our Ohio Department of Health, and then the U.S. and global numbers coming from Johns Hopkins University. Yesterday in Ohio, we saw 892 new cases. That's the fourth highest number of new cases we've seen here in Ohio, and Governor Mike DeWine said here in Ohio that that is not entirely due to expanded testing. He also said that this high does not include the spikes that we saw in prisons in those contained communities. So he said, effectively, this is basically the highest day that we've seen because this is general population infection. Now, he did say that it is younger people who are testing higher positively for COVID-19. But our total number of COVID-19 cases here in Ohio as of 2 p.m. yesterday is 47,651. Yesterday, we saw 17 new deaths reported in the state of Ohio, and that brought our total to 2,772. And we saw 55 new hospitalizations, which is actually down over the past couple of days, bringing that total to 7,502. ICU admissions were up by 1 yesterday. We saw 11 new ICU admissions, bringing that total to 1,897. Now, let's talk about that U.S. numbers hitting that spike. So if you compare at 2 p.m. each day, the difference from 2 p.m. Wednesday to 2 p.m. Thursday was 46,803 new COVID-19 cases. So that's where we're seeing that peak here in the U.S. We have not seen over 40,000 new cases in a single day. So from 2 p.m. Wednesday to 2 p.m. Thursday, according to Johns Hopkins University, we saw 46,803 new cases of COVID-19 here in the U.S. And this, again, is as states continue to open up, and experts do say that this is not only because of increased testing. They do stress the importance of maintaining those CDC guidelines and those safety protocols, like wearing a mask in public. And now experts are saying that wearing a mask does give you a certain degree of protection yourself. I know that for a long time the experts have been saying that it is to protect other people, and it certainly is, but they are now saying that it also does provide you with a certain level of protection yourself. Here in the U.S., the total number of deaths is now 122,177. We saw 898 new reported deaths across the U.S. yesterday. Globally, there are now almost 9.5 million known cases of COVID-19. Those are both the confirmed and the probable cases based on that expanded CDC definition. And the total number of deaths yesterday as of 2 p.m. was 484,092 globally. So that's close to that 500,000 mark. So today, the White House will hold a COVID-19 press briefing for the first time in over 2 months as those numbers are rising here in the U.S. It's scheduled for 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and it'll be held at the Department of Health and Human Services instead of the White House. And it'll be Vice President Mike Pence who is leading that briefing today. President Donald Trump is not expected to be there based on his schedule. We'll be streaming this briefing on social media accounts today, including Facebook and YouTube, so you can find that there. And if you have our WKYC app, you'll be able to find it there as well. Let's talk a little bit of baseball. So baseball is coming back. That is the plan, and there are a lot of people with a lot of questions. One of the first questions is, will fans be allowed at the game? So we're going to dive into that. So just to recap here, there will be a 60-game season this year that's scheduled to start on July 23rd or July 24th. Spring Training 2.0 is scheduled to begin on July 1st when those team members will report back to their home places in order to get that training underway. This will be the shortest Major League Baseball season since 1878. Now to the questions. Will fans be allowed in the stands? The answer to that, short and sweet, is no. But you'll be able to watch the games on TV. Now the question of who will they play? So the teams are expected to play 40 of their games against divisional opponents and 20 games against opponents from the corresponding regional division in the other league. So the Cleveland Indians, for example, who are in the American League Central, they'll play 40 games against other American League Central teams and 20 games against National League Central teams. And they will be played over a 60-game span. The traditional postseason format is expected to take place beginning September 29th. Now, there are new rules in place as well. These are put in place to limit injury. So the National League will have a designated hitter rather than forcing pitchers to bat for the first time ever. So this is supposed to decrease the risk of injuries to pitchers and allow relief pitchers to potentially pitch longer rather than being subbed out for a pinch hitter. So there are also changes to extra innings as well. So every half inning after the 9th inning will start with a runner on second base. This will be different. So that runner would be the player who made the final out in the prior half inning, but that pitch runner could be used instead. Now, this has been used in minor leagues for the previous 2 seasons and is expected to only be used in regular season 2020. So don't get used to this in the pros, but we're going to see it this year. The teams will also have increased roster size. So instead of the normal 25-person active roster, the teams will be allowed to have 30 people on the roster for the first 2 weeks of the season, 28 on the roster for the following 2 weeks, so weeks 3 and 4, and then a 26-person roster for the rest of the season. Here are the safety rules. These are the rules that have been put in place to help keep the players safe and all the staff and all the coaches and everybody that's involved in bringing Major League Baseball back, so hopefully they can carry out that full season with no issues. Players and coaches will be tested for COVID-19 every other day from the start of spring training. That's through the postseason. There will be temperature and symptom checks twice per day. Any player who tests positive, exhibits symptoms, or has been exposed to COVID-19 will be placed on an indefinite injury list and will be eligible to return once testing negative twice. So testing negative once is not going to be enough. You have to test negative twice in order to get back on the field if you do get placed on that indefinite injury list. Players and staff not participating in the game will be sitting in the stands, so you'll see some people in the stands, but they are not fans, and they will be sitting 6 feet apart. Masks will have to be worn by people who are not participating in the game. That will be in the dugouts and in the bullpen, and there will not be a pregame exchange up of lineup cards. There will be no celebration contact, no high fives, no fist bumps, no hugs, no chewing gum permitted. Chewing and spitting tobacco and sunflower seeds will not be allowed either. There will be no fights. which is, something you just hope for anyway, but we know it does happen. But there will be a hard and fast rule against no fights in this 2020 Major League Baseball season. Here is maybe the most interesting one. Any ball touched by multiple players will be replaced. So if the pitcher pitches and there's a hit, somebody touches that ball, they're tossing it out. What a shame for not having fans in the stands, because that would provide a lot of opportunities to toss that ball up to people. But I don't know what they're going to do with all those balls, but they'll be replacing them. Maybe they'll sanitize them and use them for the next game. But yeah, any ball that's touched by more than one player is out of there. Bringing it back to a topic that a lot of people are talking about, it's a big conversation about removing statues that people find to be problematic based on their histories that are tied to racist things. There's a petition calling for the Christopher Columbus statue in Cleveland's Little Italy to be replaced by a statue of none other than Chef Boyardee. So let's talk about Christopher Columbus for a minute. Many people of Italian descent see him as a cultural icon, but other people have brought up evidence of his brutal treatment of the indigenous population of the Americas, his participation in the early slave trade, and the fact that he never actually set foot in what is now the modern-day United States. But Ohio's capital city is still named after him. Columbus is the capital of Ohio, and down in Columbus, they are removing several statues of Christopher Columbus, and there's even a petition to change the name of the city to Flavortown, honoring the celebrity chef Guy Fieri, who is from Columbus. Here in Cleveland, there's a statue of Columbus standing at the entrance of a park in the Little Italy neighborhood, and one group wants to replace it with Chef Boyardee. There's a petition on change.org arguing for the statue of Ettore Boyardee to put where the Columbus statue is now. So, give you a little bit of history about Chef Boyardee, who you may only know from cans that you have in your cupboard. But Ettore Boyardee arrived at Ellis Island from Italy in 1914. He was 16 years old at the time, and he stayed in New York for a bit, but then he moved to Cleveland 12 years later. He opened a restaurant on East 9th Street and Woodland Avenue, and the sauce he made became so popular that him and his brothers eventually opened up a factory in Milton, Pennsylvania to manufacture and sell their food, and that's where Chef Boyardee comes from. So that's where the items that you might have in your cupboard that say Chef Boyardee on them, that's where they came from, all the way from Ellis Island back in 1914, and then making his way to Cleveland here 12 years later. He lived in Northeast Ohio for the rest of his life. He passed away in 1985. If you would like to visit his final resting place, you can find that at All Souls Cemetery in Chardon. So far, the petition asking for the Boyardee statue has hundreds of signatures, and people are calling him an immigrant success story who enriched our community with food and his iconic mustache. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. One more thing to let you know about today, the Asian Lantern Festival will be returning to Cleveland METROPARKS Zoo this year. So this will be the third consecutive year for the event. They expect to welcome people from July 8th through August 23rd, of course, observing all of those physical distancing protocols. There will be more than 1,000 illuminated lanterns, and 70 of them have never been seen before, so they'll be brand new to the event. There'll also be acrobatic performances, interactive experiences. It'll be interesting to see how they handle that while also observing those CDC protocols, and culturally inspired cuisine and more. So the Cleveland METROPARKS Chief Marketing Officer said, "We are excited to offer the community this unique opportunity to spend time outdoors, create memories this summer, and again connect with Cleveland METROPARKS Zoo." Cleveland METROPARKS Zoo reopened June 17th, and they do have new safety protocols following their 3-month closure related to COVID-19. At the METROPARKS Zoo, guests are not currently required to wear facial coverings, but they are encouraged to do so. Employees, however, are required to wear a mask. That is, of course, pursuant to the Governor Mike DeWine's order that employees are required to wear a mask, but the general public are not at this time. So if you do want to attend the Asian Lantern Festival, those tickets are $18 a person or $50 for a family 4-pack. And advanced reservations are suggested because there will be only a limited number of tickets for the festival so that they can allow for the proper physical distancing. The hours of that festival, again, which is happening July 8th through August 23rd, will be Wednesday through Sunday from 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. Needs to be at night so that you can see the lit up lanterns. That's it for your 3 News Now early update for Friday, June 26th. If you want to catch that coronavirus briefing, which will be head by Vice President Mike Pence, that will be at 12:30, and you will find that on our social media channels, also on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. And I'll see you back here at 2 p.m. with the latest numbers from the Ohio Department of Health and an update on where we look with those numbers nationally and in the U.S. I'm Stephanie Haney.